Hello, fellow nerds, and welcome to Our Nerdiest Thing. Today we have a very special guest, author Kim Alexander. Kim grew up in the wilds of Long Island, New York, and slowly drifted south until she reached Key West. After spending 10 years working as a disc jockey in the Keys, she moved to Washington, D.C., where she reported the traffic and spun the Oldies. After a career upgrade, she became the co-programmer of Sirius XM Book Radio, which gave her the opportunity to interview some of her writing heroes, including Anne Rice, George R.R. Martin, Neil Gaiman, Stephen King, and Margaret Atwood, among many hundreds of others. She's the author of the Demon Door series and the New World Magic series, though her husband tells her she needs to write at least 10 more books if she intends to retire in Thailand.
With him, I hope.
Maybe. He better not push it.
She currently lives with 2 cats, an angry fish, and her extremely patient husband. Welcome to the podcast, Kim.
I'm so delighted to be here. And all of that is true, except I should probably add that I wrote it several years ago. And now I'm actually coming up on having 10 books published. And now it's terrifying. I really get to work.
That's amazing.
I wrote that and I had like 3 books out. I was like, 10 books. That'll never happen.
That's exciting. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, my husband was in the media for years too, hence the reason we have a podcasting setup because he knows what he's doing. And then I love that you interviewed Anne Rice. I attribute her to getting me into reading as a teenager.
This was really a golden moment. When I worked at Sirius XM, a lot of my job was going to Comic-Con and the Miami Book Fair and Book Expo and all that stuff. It was a great job.
That sounds
and if I hadn't taken the channel off the air, I would still be there. And I got to interview Anne Rice in front of an audience the first time she appeared at New York Comic-Con. I moderated that panel. And I mean, it was like 3,000 vibrating Anne Rice, just total heads, like with their copies of Interview with the Vampire, just sitting there like, we're in the presence.
Well, because
amazing.
all of us are nerds,
lovely woman.
And socially awkward. So of course we're like shaking as we hand our book to her.
Right.
Yeah. We were just talking about that earlier because her son is supposed to be doing a celebration of life for her this year in New Orleans.
That's what I heard. That's going to be a throwdown.
Yeah, I know. Did you ever get to go to her like vampire balls that she would throw?
No.
That was on my bucket list and it didn't work out for me. So
yeah. Sorry, never did.
Oh, yeah. So tell us a little bit about your journey into being an author. You said you went from 3 books to 10 since you wrote your biography. So tell us a little bit about how you got into writing. And especially as someone that was in the media, I'm interested to hear if you got burnt out or if writing was always the thing that you were doing and then you still had a day job.
If by burnt out you mean fired, Yen, yes, that is exactly.
Well, if it makes you feel better, we didn't buy a house for 11 years because my husband was in the media because you get fired all the time. As you know.
They pay you in like you get to go to places and you get free books and records in lieu of cash.
Exactly.
But I always wrote. I was a disc jockey from the time I think I was 18. Mm-hmm. I went to college and then I went right back to being a disc jockey because that was a great decision. But I was always writing. I wrote morning show bits. I wrote essays. I wrote commercials. I was the production editor and producer and wrote commercial copy for many, 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 many years. But it was always for somebody else. Mm-hmm. And then when the channel, like I said, they took the channel off the air and I got home and I had no job. And I said to my husband, well, I guess I'd better go be a barista because I have literally no skills, none. I can brush the cat. That's like my one skill.
Someone's got
So he said, no, you need to take everything you've learned from all these authors that you've interviewed over the last 5 or 6 years and start writing because I know that's what you really want to do. And I did. My friends were kind enough to offer me their couch and their camp in North Louisiana on the lake. And me and my notebook curled up in the corner. And I started writing, and it was something that I had already had an idea about maybe what I wanted to do. So I already had the book in mind. And many years later and many, many, many revisions and much editing later, that turned into my first novel, The Sand Prince, which is an epic fantasy. And that series is a complete fantasy. It's a 4-book series called The Demon Door. But that's how I got into it. My husband is actually subsidizing my career because he's waiting for me to start making that theme park money eventually. So I write a lot because guilt is, as it turns out, a really excellent motivator.
Right. Yeah. Well, any creative person, because I'm a creative too, you're subsidized by somebody because you right. Until I like theme park money. That's a really good way to Right. Like I did my taxes and I was like, well, if you put in all of the supplies I would have bought just for funsies anyway, I kind of just broke even.
Right. And if you don't make a certain amount of money on your taxes, they call it a hobby.
Right. Yeah.
That's so demoralizing.
I don't
It's
know.
insulting, isn't it?
That's terrible.
I don't know if you cuss, Kim, but I would just say screw you to that. To whoever says it's not a hobby if I literally, bleed into it or cry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about you said you're almost to 10 books now. So you got the 4-book series. Tell us about the rest of your books.
The Demon Door was the first series that I wrote, and it was an epic fantasy, and it's got over 40 named characters, 2 worlds, 2 timelines, which was a great decision for somebody who'd never written a book before, to take on a project like,
might have been
sure, I can do it. So by the time I got to the end of that massive project, my brains were soft. I was tired. And my girlfriends in my writing group and I were in the back of a cab in Chicago a couple of years ago. And this may have been between the second and third bar. And we decided we were all going to write takes on fairy tales. And some of them did, we were going to do it together. It didn't pan out as an anthology, but I didn't know what I wanted to write about, but I needed a new subject because the Demon Door series was coming to an end. And if you look over my shoulder, you can see the last unicorn, the Unicorn in Captivity, which I got at the Met. I grew up in New York. I got it at the Met when I was a teenager. And it's been sitting over my desk ever since. And I thought, well, that might be an interesting fairy tale, not really a fairy tale, but fairy tale adjacent story to tell. What about a contemporary unicorn in captivity? How would that work? Where would he be? Who would he be? So I came up with the concept for Pure, which is the first book in New World Magic, which is the series, which is ultimately going to be book 10. I'm working on the 5th book in that series right now. And no spoilers, but in the first few pages, Ruby, the bartender, on her way home from her shift, she rescues a unicorn who's they're trying to saw his horn off. They're going to poach him. And it's in a world where fairy tale creatures have outed themselves. They're our neighbors. And the questions in the book are, would you live next door to one? Would it be nicer if you live next door to like a cute one or instead of a scary one? And some of them are like humans and some of them really don't like humans.
Some lore.
So there's, I love writing about, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I said in some lore, unicorns are scary.
That's true. March is not scary. March is just a delightful ray of sunshine. He's a unicorn shifter, obviously, because it would be less dialogue if he wasn't, among other things.
World, horses can talk in some.
Yeah, that's true too. So she feels a great deal of responsibility for March because in the circumstances of her rescuing him, something happens and he is now unable to transform back into his normal, pure unicorn form. He's trapped in captivity as a mortal man. And those who are trying to get the horn, they're still after him. So they go on adventures and they go on the run and they end up in Chicago too, weirdly enough. And it's a fairly short book, but I just fell in love with the characters and I love writing about them. And like I said, I'm currently working on book 4, Poisoned Garden, came out in January, and I'm currently working on book 5. And in book 2, the Fae get involved. So, that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah. So how many books will that series be?
I think after number 5, I probably have one more and then I'm going to wrap it up. Already thinking about the next project, which may be about time traveling crime fighters.
Oh,
that remains to be seen.
I love that.
Those are such unique takes, like stuff that I haven't heard about before. That's so intriguing to me.
Thank you.
Would you say that kind of thing is your favorite thing to write, or do you kind of like to write all genres, or do you kind of stick with
this started out as a paranormal romance and it's slowly sliding towards more straightforward fantasy because I really enjoy the world building. I love the fact that you can research or not because nobody's going to call you a liar when you describe the unseelie court. But my very favorite thing to write is definitely dialogue. I know I'm fortunate. I struggle with some things. Pacing is a challenge for me. Plot just gets in the way of people standing around and talking to each other. That's my favorite thing to write. Parties where characters are being bitchy to each other is my absolute favorite thing to write. So you can always guarantee there's going to be a bitch fest in my books.
My favorite thing to do, Kim.
I was gonna say, like, maybe you need to come hang out in our room and get some material.
Deal.
What on the flip side, what do you like to read? Is same or do you like other
Actually,
things?
I try and stay out of the genre I'm writing in while I'm working on it, because I tend to absorb, and I don't want to, other styles to bleed into what I'm working on. This is an absolute golden age of women writing like hard science fiction. When I was growing up, it was Asimov, Clarke, Silverberg, Ray Bradbury, those people, and the occasional Octavia Butler.
Right.
Now, Arkady Martin, who wrote Memory Called Empire, she's got a second book out, and she's amazing. And I'm number like 47,000 in line to get Chaos Vector. I think it's by Megan. God, I can't remember. I have it written down. Megan O'Keefe, that's her name.
I love the word of time though, where it's really cool to be nerdy, and there's
yeah.
Because we've always been nerds, right? But now there's actually material you can find without having to search very hard. And
right.
Nerdy,
oh,
right?
back in my day, ladies, back when before the Earth's crust cooled, let me tell you, it was a challenge.
That's funny. So on our podcast, we obviously talk a lot about books, but we also talk about other nerdy things and fandoms that we are a part of. So we would love to know some of your other nerdy things, hobbies, interests, and any fandoms that you might be a part of.
I came aboard Doctor Who with Chris Eccleston.
Oh yeah.
So that was the beginning of a contemporary love affair with Doctor Who.
Nice.
I was an OG Star Trek fan back when I was a tiny child watching Star Trek with my mom and dad. I can tell you the entire history of RuPaul's Drag Race. In fact, one of my characters is actually named Sasha after Sasha Velour. And now we have 2 Sasha winners. Congratulations, Sasha, who just won. No spoilers. What else am I into these days? I'm a plant nerd. I'm a Neil Gaiman Sandman nerd. I'm a cooking nerd. If you need to buy a lot of accessories to go with it, I'm probably interested in it.
That's great.
Nice. So we're going to do a couple of speed rounds.
Yay.
The first one is our nerdy and dirty speed round.
Okay.
So I'm going to just give you some prompts, and we would like for you to not think and just answer.
Okay.
We find that to be really hard for authors.
That is really hard. It is difficult. Yeah. So no thinking, just just vibes. So favorite beverage?
Xanax. Oh no, wait. Sorry. Actually, we just discovered a new cocktail called Paper Planes, which is equal parts of bourbon, lemon juice, and Amaro. And it sounds vile, but it's really delicious. If you're a bourbon drinker, I highly recommend
we live
it.
in Kentucky. We have to be. We don't have a choice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Favorite fandom?
Like I said, probably Doctor Who would be a good one for me, but I have to shout out the 6 people who are my fandom.
Oh, that's great.
Who is your favorite doctor from Doctor Who?
Like Eccleston was the first. I mean, David Tennant was so hot, but
I love David
Eccleston
Tennant.
just had that incredible, ferocious masculine energy that I really dug.
It's that leather jacket. That's
it was a leather jacket. Yeah.
Most binge-worthy TV.
That's interesting because right now we just we like to sign up for a service and then watch everything and then cancel it because we're trying to be frugal. Right now we're binging at the same time Schmigadoon and Ted Lasso.
Oh, nice.
So I don't know shit about soccer, and I absolutely despise musicals. But it's been an instructive couple of weeks.
I love Ted
They're both
Lasso.
great.
We haven't started watching the newest season yet, but I love Ted Lasso. I also know nothing about soccer, so there you go. Guilty pleasure.
I don't know that I believe there is such a thing. I think life is too short. If you have pleasure, own it.
Okay.
I mean,
favorite pleasure then. How about that?
My favorite one?
Sounds really dirty.
Yeah. Favorite.
Tell me your favorite pleasure.
No, thank you.
Probably working in my favorite thing to do right now is working in the garden because it's spring and it's gorgeous here in DC and the sun is shining and the pollen, it's like the trees are just jizzing right in your face 24/7.
My friend called it.
It feels good to be alive.
My friend called it tree sex powder, and now that's like canon.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, a book character you would get nerdy and or dirty with.
Okay, good question. Have you ever read Robin McKinley's Sunshine?
Mm-mm.
Mm-mm.
It's a very weird take on vampirism. but the vampire Constantine is like weirdly Byronic and hot.
Cool.
She never wrote a sequel for it, although everybody begged her to. So I'm going to have to lean in that direction. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to read that. You said Constantine and vampire.
I know. I was gonna say,
Yeah.
you had me at
Yeah.
vampires.
And the name of the book is Sunshine, which is the main character's name.
Okay, we'll have to look that
Okay.
up.
Yeah, add it to the list.
Yeah.
Team Edward or Team Jacob?
You know, I just never climbed on board that train. I was an Anne Rice girl, so that's the direction I leaned in. Also, I have to lean towards vampires rather than werewolves because I have a dog allergy.
So
I will
okay,
tell you
so-
though, I did get to interview Stephanie Meyer, and that woman had the most beautiful head of hair I've ever seen on a human being.
Oh, really?
Oh my God.
So let me ask you this then for Anne Rice. Would you be Team Lestat or Team Louis? Or in The Witching Hour, is there someone in there you'd be team? That's my favorite book of all time is The Witching
The
Hour.
Witching Hour. Yeah, that was,
It's an
yeah.
amazing book.
I mean, that series went completely off the fucking rails.
It did. At one point, I'm like, wait, what is happening?
What is
I'm like,
even happening here? Why does everything smell like Christmas?
right. Yeah.
I love those books so much, but I broke up with Louis because he was just too depressed all the time, and I ran off with Lestat.
Yeah.
And I really think Anne did the same thing.
She did too.
You know, she had this main character. This was the person she was going to write about, and then she just got totally absorbed with her villain, and then had to come up with a way for him no longer to be the villain,
Right.
which I think was a really, really interesting progression. I love him, and I love her books. I'd have to go with Team Lestat.
See, and I would say maybe Team Acacia because I love her whole like mid genocide thing that she
Good
does.
call.
They
Deep
really-
cut. Good call.
They gloss over it in the movie so much, and I was so mad because the whole thing is she takes him to this island and she's only letting men live that are going to breed essentially. And I find that so interesting, especially at the time that she wrote it. I mean, I can't believe they didn't like drag her into the square and like stone her or something, but because she wrote that in the 70s. But yeah.
Yeah. Who is your book boyfriend or bestie?
You know, this is, I don't know if this is cool or not, but the main character of The Demon Door, the Sand Prince, his name is Rune, my book that I wrote. I spent so much time with him and learning about him that he's my like forever book boyfriend forever and ever. He's a half human, half demon prince who's a misfit. He has no magic of his own. He's considered quite unattractive by his compatriots and friends and lovers. He's got crippling social anxiety and is an alcoholic, and yet he's the hero. He's got to save the day. And well, but it's not really a spoiler. Obviously, eventually he does. I just love him so much. He's kind and smart and has extensive genital piercing.
Can I, is it too spoiler to ask how extensive and like what part of the genital?
He's with the human woman he hooks up with, and she is astounded to see that it's a spiral of little gold beads that go all the way around. And she was like,
That is
is
very
that
nice.
for me? And he's like, well, it's actually for both of us.
Okay, well, I just bought your book on Amazon.
Oh, congratulations. And thank you, one person.
Now I'm gonna be like, my husband, edits this, and he's gonna be like, so gold beads, huh? Every couple episodes, he's like,
Yep.
so you're into something new, are you? And I'm like, well, you found out from the podcast, I guess.
Today it's gold beads. Yeah.
Exactly.
I'd never, well, that was my first book. So I obviously had never in a sex scene before, and I didn't write a lot of sex scenes on the radio, to no one's surprise. So yeah, that was really, really challenging, figuring out what words to use and how they got to talk to each other. And my characters are very chatty, so they talk through the whole thing. But it was really rewarding because I feel like I stuck the landing on that one in particular, in that book, in The Sand Prince. So I hope you like it.
You'll have to report back, Deborah.
Yeah.
I will.
Who is your book girlfriend or bestie?
That would probably be Thursday Next by Jasper Ford. You ever read those books, The Air Affair and The Well of Lost Plots? And you're nodding. I can see the English lit nerd.
Right. Well, actually, that's her. But I just get a little bit more deep cut nerd than Mindy.
Okay. Yeah, those are wonderful books, and I just love that character.
Yeah.
They're so clever.
Smut or plot?
Porque no los dos. I mean, I think there's a place
true.
for both of them. Absolutely. I like both. I mean, it's a life is a vast tapestry. There's room for everything. I like plot leading to smut. Let's put it that way. I think that's
Yeah,
fair.
me too. Favorite childhood book?
Definitely The Last Unicorn. I still have, it's right over here. It's next to me, but I can't pull it out because it will literally disintegrate.
Oh, yeah.
That is, and Peter Beagle, got to interview him, and it was a tough time for me, and he was very kind to me. So I will always love him forever
Did
and
you
ever.
like
And
the
I love
movie
that
too?
book beyond everything. And I finally got to write about unicorns.
Did you like the movie too?
Of course.
Yeah. That was like
Yeah, it's a
one of my
beautiful
very
movie.
first movies I remember seeing in the.
How scary is the Red Bull?
Oh, I know, right? Yeah, I love that movie. That one stuck with me.
Yeah.
And favorite cereal?
Ted Bundy was kind of interesting. Oh, I might have misunderstood. Granola.
Yes.
Granola. Let's go with granola.
He was probably kind of granola too, from what I
Probably.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Sure.
we're gonna shift into hot or not. So Pedro Pascal.
So hot. I mean, come on.
Thank you.
It's an
Come on.
ongoing
You've seen
debate.
the meme of him where like women don't want muscle men. Women want depressed middle-aged stepdads.
Yeah.
So
I
true.
said, yes.
I'm
I
learning
tagged
so
you
much about
guys.
you, Whit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Miley Cyrus.
I mean, Dolly Parton likes her. So who am I to say no, right?
Right. Tessa Thompson.
Remember that scene in Thor Ragnarok, the finest film ever made, where she's like, she cocks the gun?
Yeah.
I became a woman that day.
Paul Rudd.
I get more of a brother vibe from
I-
him. I mean, he's delightful and charming, and I think a vampire.
Yeah. Yeah.
So sure, he's hot.
I don't know how he does it.
Yeah.
What about a touch her and die trope?
I'm going to be coming in with a hot take. I'm not really that into tropes. I know they're tools, and I know people really like to know what they're getting themselves into, but I think you run the risk of them turning your book into Mad Libs if you're not careful.
Of course.
So I'm going to pass on that one.
All right. Sebastian Stan.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. Yes. Yeah. The more I think about it, the yeser it gets. I think it was a lot of it though, was the black eye makeup and the hair and the mask.
The Winter Soldier.
Yeah, that
A little
added to the
bit of
mystique. But
eyeliner
yeah,
does it for me.
he's a fine looking young man. Sure.
Yes. Jensen Ackles.
I didn't watch Supernatural, so all I can say is pictures of him. He looks good.
Yeah, you need to watch Supernatural if you're a nerd. You really do, because there's a lot of lore and stuff in it.
Yeah, I think
It's-
you
I
would
feel
like
like I really missed the bus, and there's a
You did.
1,000 seasons to catch up on now.
So there are 15
Wow.
seasons. Actually, our yearly girls trip started by going to Supernatural cons together.
Really?
I found out about them and went to Mindy, and I was like, "You want to go to this next month, right? Because this person's going to like scalp tickets for me, and if we go to Chicago and they're not real tickets, we'll just hang out in Chicago."
Sure.
And we, between the three of us, have gone 8 times.
Yeah.
Oh, how
And
fun.
It's really fun fandom, but we actually have a cardboard stand-up cutout of Jensen behind the computer right here. He's holding our notes. While we talk. So,
Smiling down on you.
well, Jensen,
smoldering.
Dean
Well,
doesn't
excuse me.
smile. Yeah,
My mistake.
right.
He's
Yeah.
smoldering down at us.
All right, hot or not, small town romance.
I guess it depends. Is the small town like Rivendell?
Oh, that's a really good question.
I'm
say
a
yes.
city girl, so I'm gonna have to pass on that one.
All right, Ben Barnes.
Yes, particularly with the scars.
Oh yeah,
Although I think for me it may be mostly scars.
I know that he is really good as the Darkling. Timothy Chalamet.
Okay, well, I'm a big fan of Twinks and I'm a big fan of Dune. So, do the math.
Of course. Okay, so someone that you think is just so hot, being sweaty after a workout.
I get it in theory, but I don't even like when my own sweat touches my body. So
I feel that.
yeah,
What about hot or not, The Rock?
cool, but not hot.
Okay, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Janelle Monáe.
Refer back to Tessa Thompson.
Okay, yep, there we go.
I actually went to the African American History Museum here in DC over the weekend, which highly, highly recommend. It was amazing. And they have an Afrofuturism exhibit going on right now, which I cannot recommend highly enough. And they had one of her stage costumes from the sexy computer period.
Oh yeah.
And first of all, she's teeny tiny little
She's like
person,
one
but it
pound,
was really amazing to see. So yes, 10/10. She was very hot.
Beautiful. Tom Hiddleston.
Remember what I said about guilty pleasures? I'm going to take that back because Crimson Peak was the most perfect pile of hot garbage I have ever seen. Like, remember that scene at the end where Jessica Chastain, she has her hand down his pants and she's rooting around like she's looking for her keys?
Yeah.
No notes. Perfect movie. Yes.
Miles,
He's on my laminated list.
me and my husband call it the elevator list, the people you're willing to go down for.
I like that.
But I will tell you, because you're in the media, my husband wasn't allowed to have an elevator list when he was in the media, because I was like,
I can understand that.
Yeah, and my husband's very charming, so I was like, you can't have that. Okay, Miles Teller.
He's on the list of people who I irrationally dislike on sight. I'm sure he's a lovely person.
Isn't that weird?
I just want to punch him. I don't know why.
Looks like a douche.
Yeah, I was gonna say he has douche face.
Okay, Second Chance Romance.
No, I don't think so.
And finally, on the hot or not list, Kristen Stewart.
Okay. Remember how I said I wasn't into the movies and everything?
Right.
I got to see her on a panel at Comic-Con when one of the I think the last movie came out in San Diego or wherever we were. It must have been San Diego. She was the highest human I have ever seen in public.
Oh yeah, she always is. Yeah.
Big thumbs up for me. I like her a lot. I think she's a better actress than people give her credit for.
Yeah, I will say I don't think I don't know if it was the directing or editing and or in Twilight, but they did her no favors. But her serious stuff is actually really great.
Yeah.
I will say
she needs to get out of her Chanel contract though. That stuff does not look good on her.
I really hope we get to hang out with you at Imaginarium, by the way, because this has been
I know
it's been really fun. So we are going to see you at Imaginarium here in just a few weeks. Actually, what other events or festivals do you have coming up this year?
I've got a couple of things. I'm going to be for the first time at the Baltimore Fairy Fair Ball event, which is this coming Saturday. I don't know when this is going to run. I've never worked with those people before, but they seem very, very sparkly.
Oh, fun.
So I think that'll be a lot of fun. I always do the Maryland Renaissance Festival, and that is in October because I will burst into flames if I have to go out during the summer. And what else am I doing? Some other stuff. Oh, there's something at the MGM Casino down here in DC, also in October. And then Dragon Distillery, which is a little distillery up the road in Frederick, Maryland. I do stuff with them every now and then. I tend to like getting out in public, and after the last couple of years, I'm really enjoying seeing people I'm not related to.
Right.
So I'm trying to do a lot of events this year, and I'm very, very excited about Imaginarium.
It's going to be so much fun.
Yeah,
so excited too. So, are there any ways that we can best support your work?
Well, the next time you talk to Oprah,
because she's on
bring
my
it up.
dial.
Bring it up. Honestly, I think word of mouth.
I don't know about that.
I'm sorry, I missed that, and I'm sure it was funny.
She's on Mindy's elevator list.
Oh. In that case, afterwards, when you're a post-coital cigarette, please bring my name up.
Okay.
I think word of mouth is so important because I'm on Amazon, but I'm also on every other bookstore on the face of the earth. I went wide with distribution, and I'm selling books off my website. And I'll come to your house and read to you if you want. But if somebody said,
I'll buy them.
If somebody says, I read this book and I think you'll really like it, that's more than I can ever do by doing my little tap dance on the internet. So yeah, word of mouth is super, super important. Awesome. And being with guys like you, this is fantastic.
Well, we're having tons of fun. So, I mean, it's fantastic for us as well.
Good.
So we know you're on Instagram, and you just said you had a website. What's the website?
KimAlexanderOnline.com.
Okay. Is there any other place we can find you online?
Yeah, like I said, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, the 4 weirdos out there who have Kobo. Apple, I'm on Apple for some reason. And I'm selling books directly from my website, which is something that was a real learning curve that I just went through. But I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of that as, Amazon and the big chains, get the stranglehold going tighter and tighter and pay authors less and less. That's, I think that may be the wave of the future. Anyway, I'm KimAlexanderOnline.com. That's where you start.
All right. We've been seeing a lot of smaller indie authors on Amazon getting their books pulled because someone has pirated them and put them somewhere else. And they're like, hey, it's not my fault. And now you're not paying me. And I really need my books to be back on there. So a lot of people are starting to move to their own website because it's safe. They can control it. And Will you have books at Imaginarium for people to buy?
Absolutely. I'll sign any name you want on them. Stephen King, sure. John Grisham, whatever you want. My own, should you be so inclined. But yes, I will have all my books available there.
Well, to wrap up, what we usually do on our podcast is we all talk about whatever our nerdiest thing of the week was. So something that we did or something that we said sometimes or whatever, something. So we would like to know what your nerdiest thing of the week is.
Well, going to the Afrofuturism exhibit was pretty nerdy, but I can beat that, I think. I went to see Jeff Vandermeer, who wrote Annihilation. He did a speech at the Smithsonian last week, and he talked about the Southern Reach and Area X, Annihilation, and rewilding your backyard. So I think that might be the nerdiest thing I did last week. Learned how to rewild my backyard.
You're making me want to move to DC. I already love DC.
There's a lot going on here. It's a great town.
It is.
I highly recommend.
Well, yeah, we're excited to come visit, even for just a couple of days for Imaginarium. So thank you so much, Kim, for being here today and talking with us. We're looking forward to seeing you in person.
Yay.
It's been great to talk to you and get to know you a little bit.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I can't wait to see you in person.